Today's energy feels different for a reason. Not louder, deeper, like something beneath the surface has finally reached the point where a new cycle can begin growing. Because today, the Taurus New Moon arrives, and unlike emotionally chaotic resets, this new moon moves slowly, deliberately, like roots pushing into soil quietly before anything visible appears above the surface. That's the energy opening now. Not dramatic emotional intensity, grounded beginning, a chance to build differently than before. Over the past weeks, Pluto retrograde has been exposing patterns, emotional survival habits, nervous system exhaustion, attachments rooted more in familiarity than true alignment. And through that process, space has been created. Not empty space, prepared space. Space where healthier emotional foundations can finally begin taking root. That's why today matters, because new moon energy does not simply ask, "What do you want?" It asks, "What are you truly ready to sustain?" That question changes manifestation completely, because Taurus energy is not interested in temporary emotional highs. It's interested in stability, consistency, long-term nourishment, the kinds of emotional conditions that allow growth to continue even after initial excitement fades. You may notice today that your priorities feel clearer now. Less attraction to emotional chaos, less emotional urgency to force outcomes, less desire to build your future on unstable emotional foundations. That awareness is part of the new moon itself, because grounded growth requires grounded awareness first. You may also feel a stronger connection to what your nervous system genuinely needs now. More peace, more rhythm, more emotional honesty, more environments where your body no longer feels trapped inside survival mode constantly. Listen to that carefully today, because the seeds planted under this new moon grow strongest where emotional stability already has room to develop. Not perfection, stability. You may even feel that something internally is finally ready to stop surviving and start building instead. Building healthier habits, healthier relationships, healthier emotional patterns, healthier ways of relating to yourself and your future. That shift is the real beginning happening now. Not external proof yet, internal foundation. And foundations determine everything that grows afterward. So today, pay attention to what feels grounding, what feels sustainable, what feels emotionally honest enough to continue growing long after this moment passes. Because this new moon is not asking you to force transformation overnight. It's asking you to plant the next chapter from healthier emotional soil than before. Not every new moon creates the same kind of beginning. Some ignite action quickly, some create emotional intensity. But this Taurus new moon works differently. It slows everything down enough for you to actually feel what your future is being built on. That's why today may feel emotionally grounding, not emotionally explosive. Because Taurus energy does not rush manifestation, it stabilizes it. And stability requires honesty, real honesty, about what your nervous system can sustain long term, about what repeatedly supports your peace, about what continuously destabilizes it, about which emotional patterns you are finally ready to stop building your future around. That awareness matters deeply now, because Pluto retrograde has already spent weeks exposing the deeper emotional architecture beneath your life, the survival habits, the emotional overextension, the attachment to chaos, urgency, or overstimulation. And now, This new moon asks, what foundation are you choosing next? Not emotionally for one moment, long term. You may notice today that emotional clarity feels calmer now, not emotionally numb, steadier, like your awareness is no longer trying to emotionally chase certainty constantly. That's important, because emotional maturity changes manifestation completely. You stop asking, how do I force outcomes emotionally, and begin asking, what kind of life can actually support my peace consistently? That question creates entirely different choices, healthier routines, healthier emotional pacing, healthier boundaries, healthier standards for what deserves long-term investment. That's the Taurus influence already working through you. You may also notice today that your body feels more connected to this process now, wanting more grounding, more rest, more regulation, more emotional simplicity. Because this new moon is not only mental or emotional, it's physical too. Taurus energy cares about what your body experiences daily, the environments you live in, the rhythms you repeat, the emotional conditions your nervous system must continuously absorb. And once awareness begins recognizing how deeply those things shape your future, your priorities naturally begin changing. You may even realize today that slower growth feels more trustworthy now, not because you stopped wanting transformation, because your awareness is beginning to value sustainability more than emotional urgency. That's a major shift, especially after long periods of emotional survival mode, because survival mode teaches people to rush, but grounded healing teaches people to root, and roots are exactly what this new moon is asking you to strengthen now. Not emotionally dramatic roots, stable ones, the kind capable of supporting the future you truly want to grow into. One of the deepest transformations that can happen emotionally is realizing you no longer want to build your future from exhaustion. Not emotionally, not mentally, not physically. Because survival mode changes the way people create their lives. It creates from urgency, from fear, from emotional instability, from the constant need to secure safety externally as quickly as possible. And over time, those patterns become automatic. The nervous system learns to move fast, react fast, attach quickly, overextend emotionally just to maintain temporary certainty. But eventually, the body becomes tired, the mind becomes tired, the soul becomes tired. And that's where this new moon becomes powerful, because Taurus energy interrupts emotional survival pacing. It slows your awareness down enough to ask, what actually feels sustainable long term? That question changes everything. You may notice today that your relationship with growth feels different now, less emotionally desperate, less attached to immediate proof, less willing to sacrifice your peace for emotionally unstable outcomes. That matters, because grounded manifestation requires a different nervous system state than survival-based manifestation. Survival mode builds quickly, but often unstably. Grounded awareness builds slower but stronger, and stronger foundations create stronger futures. You may also notice today that your emotional standards are changing naturally, not becoming colder, becoming clearer. You become less willing to emotionally normalize instability, less willing to continuously abandon your peace for temporary emotional intensity, less willing to invest deeply where your nervous system never fully feels safe or regulated. That awareness is healing becoming embodied, not just understood mentally, felt physically, because the body remembers what emotional chaos costs, the exhaustion, the tension, the hypervigilance, the endless emotional anticipation. And once the nervous system begins recognizing peace as safe, your entire relationship with the future changes. You stop emotionally preparing for collapse constantly. You begin preparing for sustainability instead. That's a massive shift, especially under this Taurus new moon. Because Taurus energy does not ask what can emotionally excite you immediately. It asks what can emotionally nourish you consistently. There's a difference. One creates temporary stimulation, the other creates lasting growth. You may even realize today that some emotional goals have quietly changed, not because you gave up, because your definition of fulfillment evolved. Peace matters more now, consistency matters more now, emotional safety matters more now. Not from weakness, from wisdom. Because wisdom understands that sustainable futures cannot be built on chronically unstable foundations. So if today feels calmer, more grounded, more focused on what can actually last, it's because this new moon is not simply beginning a new chapter emotionally, it's teaching you how to build that chapter from an entirely different foundation than before. This new moon becomes important because once peace starts feeling valuable, this new moon becomes important because once peace starts feeling valuable, part of you may become afraid of anything that threatens it. The first trap is resisting all uncertainty completely, wanting guaranteed outcomes, wanting complete emotional control, wanting every future step to feel perfectly safe before taking action. Because after emotional instability, certainty feels comforting. But growth still requires movement, and movement always contains some unknowns. Even healthy growth does. The second trap is mistaking comfort for alignment. Something feels familiar emotionally, so the nervous system assumes this must be safe. But familiarity and alignment are not always the same thing. Sometimes survival patterns feel familiar too. Over-functioning emotionally, constant urgency, emotionally unstable dynamics. The nervous system can mistake those things for normal, even when they're draining. That's why awareness matters so much now, especially under this Taurus new moon, because grounded growth requires discernment, not just comfort. You may also notice today a subtler pattern, trying to emotionally perfect your future before allowing yourself to begin building it, waiting until you feel completely healed, completely stable, completely certain. But healing does not happen separately from life. It happens while life continues unfolding. This new moon is not asking you to become flawless before moving forward. It's asking you to move forward from a healthier foundation than before. That's different. You may also feel tempted to emotionally overprotect your peace now, avoiding difficult conversations entirely, avoiding vulnerability completely, avoiding emotional risk because regulation finally feels valuable. And while boundaries absolutely matter, growth still requires openness too. Healthy connection, healthy vulnerability, healthy participation in life. That distinction matters deeply right now, because peace should create more capacity for growth, not emotional isolation. Real grounding does not disconnect you from life. It allows you to move through life without constantly abandoning yourself emotionally. That's emotional maturity, not emotional withdrawal. You may even notice today that your awareness is becoming more sensitive to the difference between sustainable peace and emotional avoidance disguised as peace. One regulates the nervous system, the other suppresses discomfort temporarily, and eventually the body reveals the difference.
So, the real calibration today is grounded expansion, building stability without becoming emotionally rigid, protecting your peace without becoming afraid of growth itself, planting healthier roots without demanding absolute certainty before allowing yourself to begin. Because what makes this new moon powerful is not emotional perfection. It's your willingness to begin building differently now.
So how do you actually work with this Taurus new moon without emotionally forcing manifestation and without slipping back into old survival patterns? You build slowly, intentionally, honestly. Because this new moon is not asking you to emotionally reinvent your life overnight. It's asking you to strengthen the conditions that allow healthier growth to continue consistently. Start by focusing on what your nervous system trusts, not temporary excitement, trust. What environments help your body feel regulated? What habits support emotional clarity consistently? What relationships feel emotionally sustainable instead of emotionally consuming? Those things matter deeply now, because Taurus energy grows through repetition, not emotional intensity. And whatever receives steady attention during this next cycle begins strengthening roots beneath the surface. You may also find it helpful to simplify your relationship with progress now. Not every meaningful transformation needs dramatic momentum beside it. Some of the strongest growth looks very ordinary at first. Better routines, better sleep, healthier emotional pacing, more grounded daily decisions. Those quieter patterns reshape your future more deeply than emotional extremes often do. Because consistency compounds emotionally, mentally, physically. You can also begin asking yourself a more important question now. Not, what do I emotionally want right now? But what kind of emotional foundation can actually support the future I want long term? That question changes priorities completely. Because long-term peace requires different conditions than short-term emotional stimulation. You may also notice today that your body is asking for gentleness now, more grounding, more simplicity, more rhythm, more emotional honesty. Listen to that, because this new moon is deeply connected to nervous system regulation, not only emotional desire. The body matters under Taurus energy. The environment matters. The routines matter. The emotional conditions you repeatedly expose yourself to matter. And once awareness begins honoring that, manifestation changes. Not fantasy-based manifestation, embodied manifestation. The kind built through aligned daily choices. You may even realize today that your future does not need to feel emotionally chaotic to feel meaningful anymore. That realization is powerful, because once peace becomes valuable, your standards naturally evolve. You stop emotionally investing where your nervous system continuously loses stability. You stop building futures on emotionally unstable foundations. And once those standards strengthen, everything built afterward changes too, quietly but permanently. So today, plant slowly, build carefully, choose consciously, not from fear, not from emotional urgency, from grounded awareness. Because what this new moon begins growing now has the potential to become far more sustainable than anything built from survival mode before. Before you rush to see results from this new moon, pause here for a moment, because part of what's happening today is not only emotional, it's neurological. Your nervous system is learning how to trust stability again, and trust takes repetition, especially after long periods of emotional survival mode. You may notice today that calmness still feels unfamiliar sometimes, not uncomfortable exactly, just slower than what your body became used to. Because survival mode creates constant internal motion, thinking faster, reacting faster, preparing emotionally for instability before it arrives. And when those patterns begin slowing down, the nervous system often asks, should I still be preparing for something? But this new moon is trying to teach your system something different, that peace does not need to feel temporary anymore, that regulation does not mean you're falling behind, that slower growth can still create powerful transformation. In fact, it often creates stronger transformation, because growth rooted in regulation lasts differently. Taurus energy understands that deeply. It builds through consistency, daily rhythm, grounded repetition, small, stable choices made over long periods of time. That's why today may feel emotionally quieter than expected. This new moon is not trying to emotionally overwhelm you, it's trying to stabilize you, emotionally, mentally, physically. You may also notice today that your awareness is becoming more embodied now, not only intellectual. Your body recognizes what drains it faster. Your nervous system recognizes overstimulation faster. Your emotional energy becomes more selective naturally. That's important, because healing becomes real when the body begins believing it too, not only the mind. You may even realize today that your relationship with peace has changed completely. Peace no longer feels boring. It feels valuable, protective, supportive, like something your future actually depends on now. That's a major shift, especially after emotional chaos. Because once your nervous system begins trusting stability, your choices begin changing naturally afterward. Calmer boundaries, healthier pacing, more sustainable emotional investment. The kinds of shifts that slowly rebuild an entire life from the inside out. You may also feel less emotionally interested in forcing outcomes now, less urgency to emotionally prove yourself, less attachment to emotionally unstable timelines. That's the Taurus New Moon already working through you, teaching your awareness that meaningful growth does not need to feel emotionally frantic to be real. So today, allow calmness to feel safe. Allow grounded pacing to feel trustworthy. Allow your nervous system to stop treating peace like something temporary. Because what this new moon begins strengthening now is not only your future goals, it's your capacity to emotionally sustain them long term.
Let everything settle here. Not to force immediate answers, but to recognize that something meaningful has already begun shifting beneath the surface. Because today was never meant to feel emotionally explosive, this new moon works differently, quietly, steadily, like roots strengthening underground before visible growth appears above the surface. So take a breath, slow, grounded, unforced, and notice what feels different now. Maybe it's the reduced emotional urgency. Maybe it's the realization that your nervous system no longer wants to build life around chaos. Maybe it's simply the awareness that peace has started feeling more emotionally valuable than intensity. That matters deeply. Because this new moon is not only planting external goals, it's planting internal conditions. Healthier emotional pacing, healthier boundaries, healthier relationships with stability itself.
the kinds of foundations capable of supporting long-term growth, not temporary emotional survival. And once those foundations strengthen, everything built afterward changes too. More grounded decisions, more sustainable relationships, more emotionally honest priorities, the kinds of shifts that quietly reshape an entire future. That's why this new moon matters so much. It slows your awareness down enough to finally ask, what can truly nourish my life long term? Not emotionally for one moment, long term. And once that question becomes real, your nervous system naturally evolves. You stop emotionally investing where your nervous system continuously loses stability. You stop building futures on emotionally unsustainable foundations. You stop mistaking emotional chaos for emotional depth. That awareness creates a completely different chapter. Not overnight, but steadily, like roots growing stronger through consistent nourishment over time. You may also realize today that healing has already changed you more than you first noticed. A calmer reaction, a clearer emotional boundary, a healthier relationship with peace, a stronger awareness of what genuinely supports your nervous system. Those quieter shifts matter more than dramatic emotional breakthroughs often do, because consistency compounds emotionally, mentally, physically, and consistency is exactly what this new moon is trying to strengthen within you now. You may even feel that part of you is finally ready to stop emotionally surviving life and start building it consciously instead. That readiness is powerful, because this next chapter does not need to be built from exhaustion anymore, not from fear, not from urgency, not from emotional overextension. It can be built differently now, more grounded, more sustainable, more emotionally honest. So as you move forward from here, stay close to what feels nourishing, not emotionally addictive, not emotionally chaotic, nourishing. What strengthens your peace consistently? What supports your nervous system long term? What feels stable enough to continue building your future upon? Let those answers guide this next cycle now, slowly, patiently, without forcing visible proof too quickly. Because what this new moon begins planting today is not simply another temporary emotional phase. It's the beginning of a healthier emotional foundation capable of supporting a different future than before. And if this helped you understand your current phase, even slightly, return to it, not to emotionally hold on to the past, but to continue building forward from steadier ground within yourself now.